Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm so excited to be taking a look at the RadioMaster TX16S Mark II. Now, my original plan was to take it to our indoor flying club where almost every single member either has the original or the Max, and I wanted to sort of show how this radio has dominated the transmitter market, even in a small club. I was going to unbox it there and get everybody's thoughts, but sadly, and this never happens, hardly anybody showed up on this particular night. So I'm going to ask them to send me pictures of theirs because I think it will be important later on in the video. So one of the big upgrades is that it's now available with an internal 2.4 GHz express LRS with a full speed baud rate, but you can still get it with the 4-in-1 module as well. It comes pre-flashed with Edge TX version 2.6, so it can now use the touchscreen function. The starting price is $199 or 152 quid for my locals, which is actually currently cheaper than the original in the UK at least. I'm sure by the time this video comes out, the original will go down in price. Now, I say starting price because they've given you the option to have it with the AG01 gimbal, which is interesting because the new V4 standard Hall sensor gimbals have the AG01 guts already inside them. They just don't look as fancy. But on the plus side, if you want to upgrade to the Mark II and already have the AG01 gimbals, you can just swap them over. Not only that, they've also released the Max Mark II. So if you like the upgraded handle or the carbon fiber look and the fancy colors, you can pay a bit extra for that. There's also the Joshua Bardwell edition, which I think is just his preferred purple color scheme of the Max. I'd argue that that was also Painless 360's preferred color scheme, but that one is only available with ELRS and not the 4-in-1 option. And lastly, there is the MCK edition, which has a pearlescent front plate and is only available with the AG01 gimbals with the Max specs. And there's no 4-in-1 option with that one either, so the price of that one is $549. Now, when it comes to should I get the internal ELRS version or the 4-in-1 version, it was literally the flip of a coin for me. In an ideal world, it would have been great to have both of them inside. I chose the 4-in-1 version because I tend to find myself having to review the odd FrSky model or a Spectrum model as I'm doing more plain stuff on the channel. And I've also got a lot of these external Express LRS modules that can go up to 1 watt, whereas the internal ELRS module on this new TX16S has a max power output of 250 milliwatt, which of course is plenty, so it's a really hard decision, but more on that later. Now, I'm going to tell you something that I don't think many people are going to pick up on. As you know, I've been trying to pioneer HD 360-degree wireless head tracking, which requires the FrSky Parawireless Bluetooth trainer. Now, the previous TX16S had the solder pads to install the FrSky X-Lite wireless Bluetooth module, but it's just too risky and tricky to do, so I'm excited to announce that the Mark II has done away with the solder pads and instead there is a pin header, and RadioMaster are going to release a Bluetooth and Wi-Fi adapter that plugs into the pin header so that we can finally have wireless head tracking from the TX16S, and I can finally do away with my 2019 Tyrannus. All I'll say is, RadioMaster, please release that as quick as possible because everybody is massively missing out on this amazing VR style head tracking experience. Now, you might be a bit miffed as to why the Mark II still doesn't have a removable antenna, and this is kind of one of the reasons that swayed me into getting the 4-in-1 version. I think the answer is simple, because if I was making a radio for the masses, which ranges from beginners to experts, if you give them a removable antenna and someone powers it on without the antenna attached, then we all know that it can damage the RF chip inside, which could lead to a lot of RMAs or complaints from beginners that their range is really poor. So from a manufacturing perspective, I think it's a smart move, and for the rest of us, we all have to walk as slow as the slowest person for the product to succeed. So that's my take on it. I will say though that the antenna is much more rugged than the first version, but that might just be because mine was literally one of the first ones and they have improved it since. But the old one is all floppy and the new one is nice and stiff. Other upgrades include what they are calling an optimized integrated circuit charge up to 2.2 amps, which I think translates into quick charge 3. It at least puts it in that category. And they've also optimized the power supply circuit that minimizes ripple voltage, and that's going to improve gimbal stability. There's now an audio jack compatible with headphones, which the previous version didn't have. It's placed on the back so that external modules don't cause any RF interference noise. It's also got 2 loudspeakers, which I don't personally use just because it distracts me when I'm doing reviews. But I spoke to Gal Creamer and he said his Crossfire module was making the speakers buzz on his version of the Mark II, but I've not found that on mine. It's completely quiet whether I have the volume up or down, so I'm not sure what's going on there. What I have found, however, is that the full-size Crossfire modules are notoriously bad at fitting JR bays in general, and they've changed the design slightly on the Mark II. First of all, you can see a small recess that wasn't on the original, so maybe that's something they have planned for the future. But the way the modules clip into the bay has been changed, and in general, the old version seems to clip modules in better than the Mark II. In fact, when using the full Crossfire module, you really have to push hard on it, otherwise it doesn't lock in. So I'd be really cautious here and make sure if you're using Crossfire, give it an extra tug to make sure that it's fully clipped in, because sometimes it doesn't and you can pull it out. It's in there tight, but you can still pull it out. They've redesigned the battery plate so that it's easier to remove, although I can't say I had a problem with the last one. The bay is slightly narrower though, but the 5000 mAh 2S GMB Li-On packs still fit in there. It's just a bit more snug. You still get the 18650 adapter case, so it's 2S only, although with it using a 2S balance plug, you'd have to do something really daft to try and run it on 3S anyways, so don't do that. Now, I've touched on the gimbals already, and they're calling them the V4 Hall gimbals, which have the AGO1 chipset in them, which improves the center stick stability as well as temperature stability. So there'll be less need to use RC deadband in Betaflight. And unlike other manufacturers, their entire ethos is not to have to take the radio apart unless you absolutely have to. So these 2 1.5mm hex screws at the side adjust the vertical travel from 38 degrees to 54, with anti-clockwise giving you more travel and clockwise less travel. The horizontal travel can't be adjusted, but I guess this feature is more for those who like less travel just on the throttle. Both vertical and horizontal stick tension can be adjusted though, with the vertical being at the top or the bottom on the opposite gimbal, as the way gimbals work is one has to be upside down, and the horizontal tension is on the stick itself. Now it seems like you can only buy the Mark II in Mode 2, but as we know it, RadioMaster always goes the extra mile, and they sent me a Mode 1 version, but really it was just for my convenience, because you can change from Mode 1 or Mode 2 and 3 using this one here or this one here, depending on which side you want the throttle on. The only thing you can't adjust is a ratchet, so you'd have to take the back off and switch the clamp if you wanted a ratchet, which I don't think any of us are using these days anyways. On the subject of not taking the thing apart, they've even added a hole filled with a rubber grommet on the back so that you can access the Cmos battery. It would be a bit fiddly, but I like the fact that they tried. I think I'd be inclined to take the back off with that one, but maybe the hole can be used for something else, like some sort of external cable or device. Another improvement is a really well-defined detent with the potentiometers, and this includes the sliders on the side as well, so big thumbs up for that one. They say that they have retooled the faceplate with improved fit and finish, and it's definitely a different type of material than the first version, but visually the only difference I can see is bolder text and this pattern on the side that's got a more laminated finish than the first version. The switches are all the same, going all the way back to the X9D. I would love more 2-position switches on this radio. Of course, we have the 6-position Arducopter or Arduplane type switches, which work on a single channel like the previous version. All of the menu buttons and scroll wheel is the same. Nothing has changed underneath either, other than a recess so you can pull the bottom cover off more easily. We still have the UART pins and USB charging. It does come with an SD card, but it's only 250 megabytes, so you are probably going to want to change that out. And again, on the top, nothing has changed there. We've just got the trainer port and the USB-C to access the SD card contents, firmware updates, and it doubles up as a SIM joystick. You're given the same foam box as last time. I wish it had a handle on it, but you can buy a RadioMaster carry case for it separately. They give you these flatter hand grips if you don't like the thicker ones, but I'm so used to the thicker ones from the previous version, I think I'll be sticking with them. You get a USB cable and a screen protector, which I really need to use because I'm always scratching up my screens. There's a cute RadioMaster keychain and some spare gimbal springs. Now, I mentioned earlier that our entire club is running the TX16S in some form. There are a couple of members doing Spectrum, but it's mostly RadioMasters. So this is Paul's TX16S with the AGO1 gimbals, and this is Gareth's running Crossfire. Then there's Fubar Phil's running Express LRS. Darren has the Max running Crossfire, and it's all tripped out with the red colours. Then there's, of course, the 2 that I have, or 3 if you include the Max that I have. And also Phil, who you see doing the head tracking with me on the channel, he's got 2 of them as well. I even went further than that and asked people to post theirs on Facebook, and I was staggered how many people owned them, but had also personalized, modified, and added the AGO1 gimbals, which are basically the same price as the radio, which begs the question, are people going to upgrade? And I'm inclined to think that a lot of people will, because they clearly love this radio. So I'd love to know in the comments if you have the first version of the RadioMaster TX16S, Are you going to upgrade or not? And are you going to go for the Express LRS version or the 4-in-1 version or any of the other versions? I would love to know. And on that bombshell, I think that will do it for this review. But it wouldn't be a proper full works AndyRC transmitter review without my weird stick overlay flying in mode 1. This is just to show that the transmitter does work. I'm using the Beta FPV 1 watt module, but just running it at 250 milliwatts. I don't really have a lot to say because the look and feel of the transmitter is the same. The only thing I can really say is that the gimbals are definitely smoother than the first version, which should be the case really with them having that AG01 chipset in them. The model is the Beta FPV Pavo 35, and the camera, of course, is the Cadex Peanut. I just want to stress with RadioMaster, please bring out that Bluetooth adapter so we can do wireless head tracking. I'll put a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment if you wish to get one. They are affiliate links, so if you make a purchase by clicking on them, I'll get a small commission. It's not a huge amount, but it doesn't cost you anything and it helps the channel out. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.